Good morning, sir.
Morning.
I'm just gonna set up the live stream in the Facebook account.
Okay. I was a little bit confused there for a minute on my calendar. It says it goes from 7 a.m. to 8:45 a.m. And I'm like, well, no, that's not true. It says 7 a.m. Central Time to 8:45 a.m. Eastern Time. That's kind of odd the way that's listed.
That's weird. That might be because of Catherine's account, and she's currently in Central, time zone. That could be the reason.
Okay. Are you going to be on for the entire meeting?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay. I just sent you a share request then. I'll let you continue to be the host.
Yeah, I'll set you as a host too.
Morning, Mr. Rose.
Good morning. How are you, John?
I'm awake.
That's good.
Actually, I was just thinking about that. Thank you very much.
It is good to be seen and not viewed. Morning, Ross. You're muted.
Good morning, John. How are you?
Good. Did you get your workout in already?
No, not yet. Just finished the home inspection report. I'm gonna have an espresso and then work out and then inspections.
Ah, there
Mm.
you go.
Steven, at work, it's probably 6 a.m. over by you, huh?
No, it's 7,
Oh, okay.
but still, I'm usually making my coffee and seeing what the day looks like before.
Nice. Is Catherine gonna be on today, or one of you guys hosting the meeting?
I'm going to go ahead and do the meeting. She may or may not be on. We'll give everybody another minute or two here. We'll say 2 minutes and then get going. Mr. Curtis. Morning, sir.
I'm pretty good. How are you? How you doing, Ross?
Doing good. Yeah, I got my first HUD consultant presentation on Saturday. Should be like 30 home buyers, realtor, and
Wow.
uh and it's in Spanish too, so that should be good. My first one and a second language. So
Okay. All right. That's a
yep.
good thing. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a niche.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guess we can call it that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually I wanted to talk to you guys. I don't know if we have time after the call. I have every time I do an inspection, I explain to the realtor and the buyers that I also do HUD consulting, and a lot of them have been asking if I would do it kind of like privately, like not them go through the renovation loan, but have me kind of do what John was asked to do and manage a renovation just with them paying out of pocket between the building department permits and general contractor and architecture and all that stuff. So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, just kind of wanted to see what John's pricing was and how he structured that, and if he used Genesis to do like the work write-ups or just kind of went off contractor bids. And yeah, I had another realtor that owns a bunch of investment properties, and he buys those and then fixes them up and doesn't like doing paperwork and dealing with the town and general contractors and all that stuff. And he asked me if I would help him too. So
Yeah.
haven't
Yeah. Let's
haven't
talk
done one
about
of
it.
those. I haven't done one of those yet, so not sure what that looks like.
Hmm. Yeah. I would like to talk to you about that. We can schedule something shortly after if you want.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. John, are you in charge of the meeting today?
No, actually, Angel's in charge, but I'm presenting today, so
Okay. All right.
it is 7:03. So I guess we can go ahead and get started. Let me
Okay.
uh, let me share my screen. Hopefully, everybody can see that.
Yep.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
today I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the proper way to document a material draw. Now, this shouldn't be a shock to anybody based on everything that we've been talking about here recently. Let me get rid of something on my other screen and see if we can. Okay, so I think that the important thing that lenders are kind of throwing in our lap to try to do is to document that material draw. And one of the things I think is very confusing is the fact that the term material draw is being used loosely. Okay. It's actually a material advance, not a draw, and HUD treats initial disbursements at closing differently than they do from disbursements during construction draws. So the objective is not to obstruct a lender. The objective is to put the action in the correct HUD context so the consultant is not certifying uninstalled work as completed work.
Yep.
So this slide's basically organizing the principle. The lender's response appears, well, for a standard 203K, let's see, the core issue here is there's one phrase and two different HUD pathways, okay? The phrase being that draw, okay, is a request for money tied to materials must first be classified. So if it's the initial draw at closing, which it usually is, then it's for a standard 203K, it has to be documented by the mortgagee on the HUD 9,200 or excuse me 92,900 LT plus supporting documents. Okay, so for a limited, the contractor statement may document the need for anything post-closing draw request. That does in fact go on a draw request package, and the work must be acceptably installed. Consultant verifies that work is complete, and materials that are on site or ordered or coming to or planned to be delivered are all excluded from a post-closing draw request. And again, that's a HUD draw request that we all are familiar with, which is a 9746A. And we're cautioned not to force one pathway into another. So for a material exception, material exception is located under the initial draw at closing category in the HUD 4001. We're going to go ahead at the end of this slide presentation, pull that up because I think it's important for us to be able to read through that, see exactly what it is, so that when we talk to the lender about it, we can cite the source, the exact document, the exact paragraph, and allow them to partake in the knowledge of how to read something in context. So the initial draw at closing has you need to document the amount and the purpose, and it goes on a HUD 92,900 LT. And you have to classify the request as initial closing disbursement if it relies on material exception. And those exceptions, we'll read in the 4001 right in that section. But in accordance with 4001, it's section 2A815A2, okay, identifies the relevant subsection as an initial draw at closing and requires the mortgagee to document the amount and the purpose of the initial draw on the HUD 92,900. The action should be documented as a lender-controlled closing escrow disbursement, not as a standard during construction draw for installed work. So it also goes on to explain that for standard 203K, the strongest supporting document is a supplier-facing documentation. So the contractor has order confirmation, an invoice, a proof of payment when prepaid, and a clear delivery timeline. And in accordance with the 4001, which permits specified material costs at closing subject to supplier contract and order conditions. The contractor should supply the documentation to the lender, and the lender should document and control that disbursement. The lender documents and controls that disbursement. The consultant's safe role in the scope is to verify, not installation certification. Okay. And the verification is that the lender could go to you and ask you to verify that this material is something that is needed based on the statement of repair. So obviously, if the contractor gives the lender a piece of paper that says, $4,000 worth of roof shingles were ordered, and they want, $2,000 based on that, 50% of the material cost. The lender could come to you, you look at the statement of repair, there's no roof work associated with this or no addition or anything. You can, tell the vendor or the lender that there may be a problem with this. And, on the other hand, yes, indeed, they're re-roofing as portion of this job, then that's a valid material request. For standard 203K material advance at closing, okay, the action should be documented as an initial disbursement with supplier documentation and lender-controlled escrow records. The consultant may verify that the required material is within the approved scope, but should not sign a draw as installed if it is not installed. So a draw request, and we're all pretty familiar with that. I don't know if you have never read the back of that draw request, which gives you the instructions. You should take the time to do so because it specifically excludes you requesting or authorizing payment for material that is not installed and installed properly on the job. In fact, it states that, I believe, in either 2 or 3 different places in those instructions. So for a limited 203K, the contractor statement is the key documentation there. So they don't need to have any orders or anything like that. In accordance with the HUD 4001, it permits up to 50% of the estimated materials and labor before beginning construction under the stated condition that says that the contractor's statement is sufficient. The contractor should execute the statement and the lender should retain it in his escrow file. And that contractor statement is pretty straightforward, which, as you can read here, it's basically I'm unwilling or unable to defer the payment of materials incurred before construction, so I need the upfront money. And they can give them up to 50% of materials and labor. Not the contractor I want to work with. Oops, excuse me. So the procedure there, again, it's a limited 203K initial advance, not a draw, initial advance. And the contractor writes a statement, gives it to the borrower, acknowledges it, and then the lender approves it and documents. The lender approves it and documents the escrow release. Okay. So let's take a minute and talk about again the during construction draws require installed work. So the HUD 9746, your standard draw request that we work with all the time. Okay. Materials cannot be paid for until they have been acceptably installed. Okay. Materials on site cannot be included in your draw request. Big red note down there. Therefore, do not use column 3 as a material advance line for uninstalled materials. And this is where it seems like these lenders want us to do exactly this. And so I want to be able to give you guys a quick note and an easy way to turn it around and show them what they need to do, as instead of forcing you into this. So, what else can we say here? So basically, a quick recap on who conducts each action. The contractor can request funds. He provides supplier orders, invoices, delivery dates, and or if it's a limited 203K statement, that's all he needs for limited. The borrower acknowledges the request, signs completed work draws only when work is acceptable. Okay. So the borrower's going to acknowledge all requests, including any material advance or whatnot. But the only time he signs the completed draw request is whenever that work is completed and acceptable. The consultant may verify the scope of alignment, that meaning if it's a material advance and the lender asks you, then you can verify that it aligns with the scope. And then you document package for alignment documentation for the package on the initial advance. And then you verify subsequent to that any completed work on a HUD 9746A. And the lender / mortgagee determines the eligibility, documents the initial draw. Lender mortgagee documents the initial draw and controls escrow release and holdback. Again, a little keynote down there. The consultant certifies installation only when installation is complete and acceptable. And that's what a HUD 9746A is for completed installation. So the procedure for post-closing draw for installed materials: the contractor installs the material as part of the approved work. The consultant verifies the work is complete and acceptable. The borrower, contractor, and consultant all complete the 9746A, and the lender reviews it and applies a holdback and releases the eligible funds. Quick note again, do not skip directly from ordered or delivered to draw. You missed the installed part, okay? And again, this is the post-closing draws, not the material advance. So responding to the administrative verification, So column 3 is a draw request field, not a material advance exception field. So the draw request that we have, that's the 9746A, has an instruction that bars payment for material until acceptably installed. And notice that I write here, a note entry cannot convert an uninstalled item into installed work. In other words, we have said in the past that, well, okay, we'll fill out a draw request and add a note saying, that this is for material advance only, is not installed, is not complete, whatever we wanted to say down there to try to cover our rear ends. But basically, any note entry in there can't convert that draw request to a material request. A safer counterproposal is to ask for the section paragraph being relied upon. And I say that when the lender tells you, and I think Walter was saying that, he had a lender who kept quoting or telling him that they were quoting 4001. And my response to him was, have them quote the chapter and verse, because there isn't one. in the 4001. Okay, that will tell you to use a draw request. Okay, if it's initial advance, the lender has to document under the HUD 4001 has to document it on the HUD 92,900 LT. If it's a post closing draw, then you can execute a draw request only for acceptably installed work. So slide talks about file checklist, what should be in the package for an initial material advance, the contractor material advance request or the limited 203K statement, something from the contractor, the supplier contract orders, invoices, or quotes, proof of payment if prepaid, approved work write-up line item, so they have to cite to what line item that is, the borrower acknowledgement, and then the lender approves it, and it gets documented on the 92,900. For a post-closing draw, actual draw request, then it's an installed and acceptable work. You use your draw request form, you do the inspection, and certify that it's properly installed and acceptable. The borrower and contractor's signatures are there. The lien waiver, if the lender requires, which it's in Genesis always produces, and the lender approves and the holdback's calculated, which again Genesis does for you. So the rule of thumb is the initial advance equals documentation of need/order, and the draw request equals the inspection of installed work. So here's a suggestion for written answer to the lender's disbursement. So, Walter, you got to go ahead and give me a draw request for this material advance. Yeah. The real answer is, and here's the exact source we're going to look at here in a couple minutes. It's in accordance with HUD 4001, section 2A8, 10A2, the material cost authority being referenced is located under the initial draw at closing. And it says the lender is processing a HUD permitted initial material disbursement. Please document the amount and purpose through the lender's closing escrow documentation, including the HUD 92,900 LT as applicable, and retain the supplier contract/order support material. You know, that's the appropriate, that's our appropriate answer to the lender when they ask us to do an initial draw request for material advancement. So here I've included some reference sources, the HUD 4001, the draw request form, the FHA loan underwriting and transmittal summary. That's what the 92,900 LT is. And it's real easy for them to add one line to that list of things that they're paying out at the closing to document this material advance. So I'm not sure why they're so dead set against us trying to force it into a draw request. And then a list of HUD 203K sample documents were in there, which are listed down here. Let me end this and pull this over here. Okay, can everybody see this now? This is the 4001 handbook, and this is the most up-to-date version, 26 November 2025. The section that we quoted, okay, is right here, 2A8, 10A, and 2 is going to be down here, initial draw close, but let's just read it in context, which is something obviously lenders aren't doing. At closing, for a standard, okay, the mortgagee must comply with the requirements found in the closing section and the additional guidance provided below. So this is HUD telling the lender they have to do this. Okay, so there is only one closing that includes the rehabilitation funds. The rehabilitation funds are escrowed and distributed as the work is satisfactorily completed. The work is completed. Establishing the rehabilitation escrow account for a standard, they tell them what they need to put in here. Okay. For a limited, again, they tell them what needs to be put in here. And the escrow closeout certifications, well, they've got a computer program that they have to fill out. HUD has a program that they have to fill out, actually FHA. And so it just reiterates to them that they have to go ahead and complete all the applicable fields on the escrow closeout certification screen of the FHA. So initial draw at closing. And this is where the lenders are maybe slightly confused, thinking draw/draw request. And it's not. This is the initial draw at closing. The mortgagee lender must document the amount and purpose of an initial draw at closing on the HUD 92,900 LT form. Okay, FHA loan underwriting and transmittal summary. And that is for a standard 203K, permit fees, prepaid architectural engineering fees, prepaid consultant fees, origination fees, discount points. And here we go. Material costs for items prepaid by the borrower in cash or by the contractor, where a contract is established with the supplier and an order with the manufacturer for delivery at a later date. And they can do up to 50% of material costs for items not yet paid for by the borrower or contractor, where the contract is established with the supplier and an order is placed with the manufacturer for delivery at a later date. Okay? Something that I think is important for us to think about when we are asked to do this is how many of us have done that and just completed a draw request, made a note on the back saying this was material only, I'm not certifying that it's here, where, used, installed, or whatnot. Okay, and then submitted it. What we failed to do, which if we were really documenting this quote unquote initial draw or material advance, is to obtain any of that information that's required to support that disbursement. And the lender didn't provide us any of that information. They just said, oh, I just give them 10% or give them 50% or whatnot. That's our policy. Does your policy include that you obtain any of this information to support that disbursement? According to the HUD handbook, that's their requirement, and that's what they're supposed to do. For a limited 203K, again, the things they document on the 92,000. Oh, I didn't memorize the form number. 92,900 LT is the same. Permit fees, origination fees, discount points, and up to 50% of the estimated material and labor costs before beginning construction, only when the contractor is not willing or able to defer receipt of payment until completion of the work. Or the payment represents the cost of materials incurred prior to construction. A statement from the contractor is sufficient to document that under a 203K limited. Okay. So, with that being said, are there any questions?
I have two. we were always told no money up front. Is this something new or just we found this verbiage?
No, well, my understanding is, I know that I have said in the past that I prefer no money up front. Okay. That's our preference, because again, even if this is documented properly, okay, you're now stuck with, how do I do a draw for this project? Because I've got to think about, if there was $10,000 on a line item, like for window install, okay, and I walk on site and now there's 50% of the windows installed, what, how much do I document is completed based on the monies that were initially available or initially um, allocated for the windows, if the lender had already given a 50% material advance? I mean, that's one of those things where it's just hard for you to, okay, wait a minute. Of that 10,000, 8,000 was for material. They already gave him 4,000. So that leaves 4,000 plus 2,000 in labor. We're 50% through the job. So that means I'm, you know, well, okay, it's easy on the labor side. I'll give you 1,000 worth of labor, but material wise, let's see, you already got half of it. So I'm going to give you a quarter of it. I mean, it's
Right.
mental mathematics that you have to do to compensate your draw request amount with what that material advance did to it. And in fact, there's going to be, I think, we're going to have probably another session just to sit down and talk about how can we effectively manipulate the numbers in Genesis to allow us not to have to sit there and worry about things. I know in the past, I've had lenders give material advances. I learn about it only way after closing and just prior to my first draw request.
Right.
And I have to sit there and figure out, well, how do I manipulate Genesis now to adequately reflect the amount of money that's left in a project so that I don't over disperse for any given line item. And I mean, it's the point where I put a little note above my computer here where it says correct feedback or correct holdback figures for Cardosa X amount, Sills X amount, Smith X amount, Espina X amount, and it's like, if you just end up having to go through a whole lot more effort to submit that draw request properly so that you don't over disperse.
Right. To do the first draw, because trying to get your numbers to match
Right.
what's left in the project.
And
My other question, or
hold on a second, Jim. Hold on a second, Jim, because if this is done properly and they actually do the disbursement and document the disbursement on the 92,000 or 97,000, whatever form it is that they have, that means that the amount of money that's in that escrow is different than the amount of money we think is in that escrow from Genesis. And it should be something where we can say, provide us a copy of the 92,700 or 97,000, not, well, that's the number, the 92,900 LT, be able to read that disbursement and then take it out of Genesis. Okay, reduce our numbers in Genesis, because then when you submit the first draw request, your numbers on a draw request will meet their master fee schedule. Okay. And you don't have to worry about trying to recalculate figures except for the holdback number. Okay. But that would be, changing one line, two lines on the draw request. Okay. Just a thought. Well, we can,
oh yeah,
talk to Catherine and try to work that out. And who knows, we might even be able to update Genesis to allow us to do it. In fact, that would be a I need in Genesis type deal change. So what's your second question, Jim?
Would it be worthwhile to put together some type of like quick email that has this information in it and send it to loan officers that we're marketing to let them know that, hey, we know what's going on with stuff and we just want to help you get through the process?
We can definitely talk that one over and see if we want to do that, because one of the things that, you know, this is kind of like dealing with real estate agents who ask you for a home inspection. You go in there and the house is total garbage, and the owners turn around and walk off on it, because they don't want to put up with it, even if you do recommend a 203K or whatnot. But then the real estate agent's all mad at you because you busted their deal. This we don't want to upset the lenders that we're dealing with
Right.
by explaining to them how to do their job or mandating that they do their job that way. But I think it is definitely important for them to understand how this system is supposed to work. And it's not us making them do that. It's HUD. It's required by HUD, so hopefully we can put something together just to explain that. I'll be more than happy to, you can, if you want to, on a personal level or on a one-on-one level with the lenders that you work with, just send them an email that says, hey, I've run into this problem and just want to make sure everybody's.
Exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, go for it.
Okay.
I mean, you're well within your rights to explain or to point out what the 4001 manual says in context, because it's pretty straightforward. And like I said, read the back of that draw request. If you haven't done it yet, read it, because like I said, 2 or 3 places in there, the last time I looked at it, I think it was like, I know 2 places specifically state that this is for one purpose only, and that is to document completed and acceptable work.
John, I want to say, first of all, very good presentation, very knowledgeable, and good information that we all should be following. In reference to what Jim had just asked, Jim, you're right. I mean, we've all been told, and it is the information that there's no upfront money on 203K loans. I mean, that's what it says. However, we do know that lenders have their own overlays, if you will. I've come in contact with several lenders who, they know that, hey, this is a 203K loan. You're not supposed to just hand out, 50% on this, but there's a relationship of some sort between them and maybe the contractor. And they want to make this deal work, so they'll go ahead and advance them the money, maybe at closing. And like John mentioned, we may not know about it until the first draw, or maybe even the second draw, which that would be even worse. But lenders sometimes have a tendency to do what they want to do. I mean, they're the keeper of the funds, so we have to
And,
properly document things.
yeah, and they're the keeper of the funds, and they can have lender overlays. Those lender overlays, though, cannot violate the rules established by HUD. They can be more restrictive. Okay. I mean, an overlay could be HUD's recommendation for the what do I want to say here? The 10% or 15% for how come I can't think of contingency? There we go. Phew, boy, that
Contingency reserve. It's
must have
early.
had too much to drink last night.
Welcome to the club.
You know, but and their overlay could say, no, we want 50%. Okay. I mean, if they want to do that, they can. But what they can't do is they can't eliminate it. Okay.
Mhm.
Because there's a requirement for a minimum, it's a minimum standard. Okay. Just like in home inspections,
Mhm.
it's a minimum standard and you can exceed, but you can't
Go
reduce.
below that.
Okay.
Good point.
And even if they do have that relationship with a contractor, even though I haven't seen that, but maybe they have a relationship and they want them, and we all know they want to get the jobs closed. They just have to document it properly. They can't slough off their requirement to meet the documentation requirement that HUD says onto us. Okay. Because we don't have a form that allows us to do that. They do. It's called that 92,900 LT, you know?
Mhm.
So,
Okay.
and if they know that the contractor wants 50% for materials, they also know that they need to have some type of documentation from him.
Right.
Okay. And then, yep, I'll cut you that check. But to do like, who was it? Was it Cross Country that said that, oh, it's just our standard policy that, no, it wasn't Cross Country, it was somebody else. Whenever I ran into this, oh yeah, it's our policy just to, always give 10% up front.
Hmm.
Well, that's fine if you want to document that and explain why in your documentation. That's 92,900
Mhm.
LT. Hey, I'm okay with that if that's what you want to do. But then don't turn around and try to make me use the only form that I have, the draw request, inappropriately because
Mhm.
I can't do it. I'm
Mhm.
signing a federal document with my signature certifying that that material was installed properly. And just because I make that one remark, doesn't necessarily make it right. Now, outside of 203Ks, we've got that whole other animal, Fannie Mae, Freddie Macs, VAs. I'm pretty sure in the VA, well, I think we'll do a little bit more research because we may be stuck in a situation where we have to use um our hold harmless agreement. Okay, for those of you who haven't seen it, right? You have the 203K slash conventional. We developed a 203K
Yeah.
slash conventional renovation hold harmless and non-certification agreement for material advance letter. Okay, which obviously I don't think it's appropriate to use in the 203K, but for the conventional renovation loans, we may still have to use that. Um, just because the lender may want to be, again, sloppy in their accounting and not
Mhm.
documenting it on their closing paperwork. But that'll be something we talk about later, probably.
Okay.
Any
Good
other
information,
questions?
John.
Say again, Chris.
I said great information.
10 stars.
I appreciate it. Okay. Well, you all go out there, have your cup of coffee. I guess, oh, I was going to say Ross already left for his cup of coffee, uh, but he's back now. So go out there, get your cup of coffee, get your day going, enjoy, have fun, and be safe.
Thank you. You
Oh,
too.
until we talk again, be outstanding.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. Bye bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Ross, he's
Hey,
gone.
yeah, Ross, do you want to talk about? No,
He's
maybe.
gone.
Yeah. Curtis, did I give you the copy of the contract that I worked up for a out of?
I don't think you did. You want to send it over to me?
I thought I did. Okay.
Did
Yeah.
you?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can share it with Ross
Okay.
if he wants. So, and I'm not trying to make a ton of money on these any more so than I would a normal 203K. So I think the fee structure that I set up was pretty straightforward and mirrored a lot of the HUD requirements. So, and it's also makes it defensible, so
Ross just asked here, did he hear his name called as he was Xing out? Did you get
yes.
that? Um, was your numbers, John, pretty commensurate with the regular HUD fee schedule?
Uh, yeah, for a lot of that. Let me just see if I can um, find it real quick, but it was mm,
Oh, he said he got to run to an inspection now. We'll be around next week to talk about private. Okay, that's
okay.
fine.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and look it up and send it to a copy to you, Curtis.
Okay, I appreciate it, man.
Yep. Okay. Later.
All right, later. Have a good day.
You too.